I don't have a lot of time. This is americasmansman.com, Homosexual Manifesto, okay? Every single episode of every single sitcom, every single television show that's ever been invented. Recently, Hollywood has been outed for having Planned Parenthood. You know, those disgusting anti-family people who they invade the government school systems, they start abortion clinics. If you happen to go to a public school or government school and there's an abortion clinic or any kind of health clinic in your school, do not trust it. Go to your parents or your local church. Do not trust any of the health officials in your government school. If you happen to be watching this, even though this is a video whose primary target audience is adults, this is America's Man's Man, and I want to talk about, so you have Leave It to Beaver, all these other these sitcoms. They mimic family life to a degree, but at the end of the day, there's always a piece of homosexual propaganda stuck in there. Whether it's Home Improvement with Tim Allen, the epitome of manliness, but you have these homosexual writers behind the scenes who are making them say really, really weird shit. There's an episode of Home Improvement. There's always the homosexual episode. The homosexual writers of the Golden Girls, innocent enough looking show, right? It's about, we're all retired, we're moving to Florida, we have no men in our lives, and so we're going to rally together. Great, right? Well, except that in the pilot episode, the original pilot episode, before it was reshot, there was a how shall we say, a permanent bachelor who happened to be the cook there, and everybody could tell that he was a permanent bachelor, as the expression goes. And he was so creepy they had to reshoot the episode because, as it turns out, women were a little bit smarter back then. But that's what they've done. And what was it called? Every single Hollywood movie, they always sneak the homosexual in there somehow. And he's often a love expert of all things, at least in this demented, twisted Hollywood backwards bizarro world that Hollywood and the fake news media has set up. And unfortunately, it's played on the emotions, it's played on the maternal instincts of both emerging teenagers and teenage girls and adult women who say, well, gee, this seems to be the direction everything's going in. You have all the creepy academic judicial activists coming out of Harvard who support the new homosexual Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. What's wrong with a little homosexuality? Anyway, but you'll notice there's been a big push over the last century since the advent of broadcast to push more and more homosexuality. Why? Because the people that go into this industry, they seem to be more prone to it than other people. Why? I'm not sure. But we're holding them accountable in the new America's Man's Men. Millennials are realizing, by the way, if you are a young person, don't settle for anything less than a virgin. Girl or guy, don't date someone who is, don't date a whore, okay? Because they are a toxic, come on, some other dude's dongle has been in there. Is that, you don't want to put your, there, right? Yeah, of course you don't. But the media forces us to settle for less than we are worth over time, and they do this by having the evil Planned Parenthood idiots. They're not idiots. They're demonic. Could you imagine convincing other women to do the big to murder their own children for a living? You've got to be pretty cold and hardened to murder your own offspring, but to convince other women to do that for a living, we're talking about mega bitches, excuse my language, mega biatches who work for Planned Parenthood. And they go into public schools. Why? So that they can sell baby parts. Project Veritas. James O'Keefe, the gentleman who was banned by Twitter, the gentleman who revealed Bernie Sanders' plot to burn down America if he's not elected. That Project Veritas. He has done tremendous undercover journalism work, investigatory or investigative journalism, and he has revealed the true motives of planned murderhood. and it is to kill, to murder babies is what they do. They murder babies, and they sell the body parts. In the video from Project Veritas, which you can watch, it's very easy to find, anybody can find it, they're talking about how the Planned Parenthood people, they murder children and sell murder to other women, which will, of course, make them more prone to cancer, and not to mention the psychological torment of having killed somebody. I mean, that's does wreak a little havoc on your conscience. Talk about Vietnam, but geez, murdering your own babies. Geez, gee willikers. Can you imagine what that does to someone? Anyway, but this is what they do. And they do it, why? So they can buy a Lamborghini, a bloody Lamborghini. Oh yeah, we got to sell more baby parts, from these botched abortions, so that I can buy a flashy hot rod that, frankly, isn't really worth owning by any stretch. But anyway. But anyway, what's more, the homosexual left said they were going to do this in the Homosexual Manifesto. If you haven't read the Homosexual Manifesto, by the way, an offshoot of communism, they told us that they were going to write dramatic works, and it's really not drama at all. It's really just cheap propaganda to undermine America, which is the goal of communism. But, and again, I hate to say this, but there was a time when women did not vote. Now that women do vote, the Electoral College and voters as a whole, our American populace, is more prone to emotional manipulation, and the homosexuals, again, always playing on that maternal instinct with daytime soap operas, saying, so sad, it's like, oh, I'm a homosexual, you should feel sad for me, and by the way, let me F your children in your government schools, is what they do. Like Linfield High School, where I went to school. Wonderful, right? The Glesson Predator in Saugus, Massachusetts, where I was a town meeting member. And, people don't know any better. They don't know what they're up to. Just go to massresistance.org and you'll see all the proof, all the evidence of the perverted, twisted things they do. Read the Homosexual Manifesto. And unfortunately, people go along with it because good men haven't stepped up and said anything. Well, that's all over because America's man's men are not going to allow the homosexual left to take over. And if you are a young person who happened to stumble upon this episode of americasmansman.com, don't settle for anything less than virgin until you're married, because the benefits far outweigh the detriments. I promise you. You can take it to the bank from America's Mansman, americasmansman.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.